Hi, my darlings. I'm Sophie Darling, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're reacting to episode 3 of Demon Slayer, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's been quite an interesting introduction to the world, especially now that we actually have got to see our first demon and that they can communicate. I'm still not entirely sure how we kill a demon other than sunlight, because obviously Tanjiro was quite hesitant to kill the demon because he has never had to kill anything before, so I feel like the condemnation was a little bit harsh towards him, but I can understand because hesitation is defeat. If you played Sekiro, you know. But essentially, he has to be the one to make decisions, and that's kind of what they're trying to drum into him in the previous episode is what are you going to do if your sister suddenly turns on humans? You can't just stand by and do nothing. You have to be decisive. You have to be the one to take her out. And if you hesitate, if you begin to doubt your cause and what it stands for, then what's the point in training you? It's useless because you're not going to last long, because the next time you come across a demon, you might hesitate and they'll use that opportunity to kill you because you'll lead because you'll leave yourself wide open. So it was a really fundamental learning lesson for him. But now he has been accepted, we might start to actually see the formal training process. And we may also get introduced to either other training candidates, which will be interesting to see how he kind of gets along with them and what circumstances have driven them to becoming demon slayers, if it's a similar situation to him, or if maybe some of them come from, like, a family line. I wonder if there would be, like, some kind of elitism, because I imagine if you descend from a line of demon slayers, you feel like it's in your blood, and you might think you're, like, better and superior to others, so I wonder if there might be, like, tension with somebody else who's kind of, like, hot-headed and is like, "I'm better than you, I'm better than everyone," but then they become friends eventually, like the guard comes down and they begin to realize, like, actually we're equals, and in this line of work we need to actually have each other's back, because you never know when you're going to need someone else to potentially intervene, because it depends, you could be outnumbered and you have to depend on those that you trust to be able to help you overcome your enemy. Of course, he has Nazuko, and she's incredibly powerful, but my biggest question is we haven't actually seen her eat anything yet, and she was drooling over the bodies. So I imagine we may end up having a bit of a dilemma where she's maybe getting weaker because she's not actually able to eat anything. So then they kind of have to come up with a solution as to how to feed her, because she can't be allowed to deteriorate. And I imagine without the nutrients that human bodies provide, she will weaken and she won't really be of benefit to Tanjiro. Not that that's her only use, but it is kind of detrimental if she's so weak that she can't protect herself, especially when they're going to be going on this journey to try and get her to turn back into being a human, that they have to interact with demons and try and track down this knowledge, entering dangerous areas. He needs her to be, like, top of her A game, but we haven't stumbled across how they're actually going to feed her and sustain her strength. But I am really excited to see how this series plays out. Again, the world building's been really enjoyable. The animation is stunning, and the music. Oh, the music is so good. And I also just love the sibling dynamic between Tanjiro and Nezuko, how they're very dependent on one another, that everything they do is for each other. Nezuko overcomes this demon side of herself for the sake of her brother, wanting to protect him. And Tanjiro, likewise, is only becoming a demon slayer to ensure that he can protect Nezuko and they can continue on this journey to find the information that they need, which they can only get from demons, which he needs to be able to overcome if they attack him. So this is all for Nezuko. This is all for her. And I just love that sort of selfless sibling love and dynamic. So seeing how that is bolstered and grows as the show progresses is definitely going to be a highlight for me. But without further ado, we're going to get into episode 3. Oh, he's keeping a little journal, documenting his adventures.
鬼殺隊その数およそ数百名
Oh, damn.
政
Okay.
府から正式に認められていない組織だが古より存在していて今日も鬼を狩るしかし鬼殺隊を誰が率いているのかは謎に包まれていた
Imagine it was a demon that was leading the organization. That'd be kind of wild. Plot twist.
体の形を変えたり異能を持つ鬼もいる太陽の光か特別な刀で首を切り落とさない限
Okay,
り
decapitation with a special sword. That's why stabbing didn't work.
生身の体で鬼に立ち向かう
By shapeshift, do they mean that they can become like animals and things?
それでも
That's
鬼に
wild.
立ち向かう人を守るために鬼殺隊に入るためには藤重山で行われる最終選別で生き残らなければならない最終選別を受けていいかどうかはわしが決める
Okay, so he sends him to the final selection, but then he has to pass that in order to be officially recognized.
最終選別で死なないために鍛え抜く
So is the final selection then against all the others who are being trained elsewhere? It must be. Like almost competing against each other for this honor.
鼻が前よりも鋭く匂いを捉えるようになったからだ
He was ideal because he also has the same technique.
罠の難易度はどんどん上がる俺を殺す気満々だ
Nah, this is just kind of what you're gonna expect in the final selection. He's preparing you as best he can. Wouldn't make it more difficult if he didn't care about him and wanted him to pass.
手ぶらじゃなくなると罠にかかりまくってしまう
But you're gonna have to learn.
最近毎日素振り山下りの後腕がもげそうなほど素振り
あと500
You can't be a demon slayer without the sword. The rocks on the roof, is that to make him aware of anything that could be crawling on top of it? Kind of like a sound trap?
縦の力には強いけど横の力には弱い刀には力をまっすぐに乗せること刃の向きと刀を振るとき込める力の方向は全く同じでなければならないさらに刀を破損つまり刀を折ったりしたらだお前
You're done
の
for?
骨も折るからなと
Oh!
低めに脅される
They're probably expensive to reforge. Your blade is an extension of your power and your pride as a demon slayer, so wield it well.
今日は
He's fast.
どんな体勢になっても受け身を取って素早く起き上がる訓練対して鱗滝さんは素で
But you're no match for him. He's been fighting demons and you're just a boy. That's why he's a trainer.
地面に転がるただいまネズコ
Aww. Every time he comes home, she's asleep, so they rarely get any time together.
全集中の呼吸
そうだそして10ある水の型すべてをお前に教える体の隅々の細胞まで酸素が行き渡るよう長い呼吸を意識
Is this to hone his senses to his
体の自然
surrounding?
治癒力を高め精神の安定化と活性化をもたらす
Oh! Enhances healing abilities?
違う
You're not breathing right.
型
はいこうですかこう
違う
Nope.
こう
Nope.
腹に力が入ってないって怒られて、お腹バン
That's
バン
gotta
叩かれる。
hurt.
早
Gotta
く行
flow.
け
Be fluid. Get in there. Can he swim? Did you even check? Well, I'm sure he'll learn.
俺は水だ。それから禰豆子が目覚めなくなって、
Oh, so she's
Hand
out
distance.
out. Is this because she's not been eating? Does her body's weak and deteriorating?
朝起きたらコトンと死んでしまっているんじゃないか。
I was gonna say, it's really weird that she was asleep every time he came home. But I thought it was just because of how long he was training, but no. 6 months. He's getting faster. You can see his senses heightening. He's becoming more aware.
さぎり山に来て1年後、突
He's
然
gonna
岩
go
が
to the final selection.
あとはお前次第だ
Do we ever see beneath the mask, or is this just his thing?
この岩を切れたら最終選別に行くのを許可する
Okay.
岩って切るものだっけ？
I was gonna
刀
say,
で切れるものだっけ？
is he testing to see if you're smart enough to be like, it's not possible? That you know when to back away from something? I don't know. Maybe it's like a trick test. Or maybe he genuinely does want him
それから
to
何
slice the
も教えてく
boulder.
れなくなった。
But he did tell you he taught you everything that you needed to know. So now it's about putting everything into practice. Is it even possible?
鱗滝さんに習ったことを毎日繰り返した。息止めや柔軟など基礎的なことも日記に書いておいてよかったと思った。
He taught you everything. Now you've just got to put it into motion. It's another lesson.
ただ半年経っても岩は切れなかった。
Oh my god, so it's been like
俺は焦る。足り
a
ない。
year and 6
まだ
months.
鍛錬が足り
Look
ない
at
ん
the
だ。
calluses on his
もっとや
hands.
らないと。
The resilience to overcome this obstacle is crazy. I feel like this has to be a trick test. See whether he'll give up when things become difficult or if he'll just keep going and persevering.
頑張れ俺、頑張れ。うるさい。
Who are you?
どんな苦しみにも黙って耐えろ。お前が男なら、
Okay.
男に生まれたなら、
Where'd you come from? His sword is wooden.
鈍い、弱い、未熟。そんなものは男ではない。
Damn, okay. Harsh. Another test. Do demon slayers wear masks to hide their identities, or do some of them choose to forsake masks? I don't know.
さあ、かかってこい。
でも君は木刀で、俺は真剣だ。
Yeah, he's not worried about that.
お前は俺に怪我をさせると思っているわけだ。
Oh, he's underestimating you.
心の底から安心しろ。俺はお前より強い。岩を切ってるからな。
This part of the test? Putting everything into motion against an actual enemy? What the fuck, man? He's so goddamn fast.
何も自分のものにしていな
Yeah,
い。
you've learned nothing. You've not mastered
鱗
anything.
滝さんに習った呼吸術。
Is he a former
全集中
student?
の呼吸。お前は知識としてそれを覚えただけだ。お前の体は何も分かってない。
It's a test.
お前の血肉に叩き込め。もっと
Whoa!
鱗滝さんが教えてくれた全ての極意を決して忘れることなどないように骨の髄まで叩き込むんだ。
毎日言ってるきつね。でも全然ダメなんだ。
This is so cool.
進め男なら
You gotta persevere. That's the lesson you're being taught here. Don't give up.
出てこい。お前の
Move
力を見せ
forward.
てみろ。
Ooh! That was a nasty hit. Who are you?
あとは任せるぞ。
What is happening?
すごい一撃だった。無駄な動きが少しもない。本当に綺麗だった。あんな風になりたい。俺もなれるかな、あんな風に。
きっとなれるよ。私が見てあげるもの。
She's so adorable.
可愛らしい。
Look at his little blush.
誰だろう。さらにマコモは俺の悪いところを指摘してくれた。
They're here to hone
無
him.
駄な動きをしているところや癖がついてるのを直してくれる。なぜそうしてくれるのか、どこから来たのか聞いても教えてくれない。
Oh, she's so cute.
鱗滝さんが大好きなんだ。
二人は兄弟ではない。孤児だったのを鱗滝さんが育てたそうだ。
子
Oh,
供たちは他にもまだいるんだよ。
what a good
いつもパンジ
guy.
ーを見てるよ。
マコモは少し変わった子だった。
He is their
言うことが
dad.
ふわふわしている。
He raised
全
them.
集中の呼吸はね、体中の血の巡りと心臓の鼓動を速くするの。とにかく肺を大きくすること。血の中にたくさん空気を取り込んで、
That's why he's been training on the mountain where the air is thin. It's to expand his lungs.
よくわからない。
He's like, wait,
ど
what?
うやったらできるかな。
死ぬほど鍛える。結局それ以外にできることないと思うよ。
Just keep going, keep persevering, keep moving forward. That's the
腕
lesson.
が足がちぎれそうなほど、肺が心臓が破れそうなほど。
Ingrain it into your very body.
それでも
Smash it into your bones.
サビトには勝てなかった。
Oh my god, his hair! Has it been 2 years now?
サビトは真剣を持
Because
って
it was a year and 6 months and then another 6 months, so...
男の顔になったな。
Oh, he's less abrasive towards him now.
今日こそ勝つ。
So 6 months since he last fought him.
より強く、より速い方が勝つ。
Ooh.
一瞬で勝負は決まった。この日、この瞬間初めて、俺の歯が先に。
Holy! He's like, he did it.
俺が勝った時、サビトは笑った。
He's so happy for you. They both are.
安心したような笑顔だった。
よくやったね。今のを忘れないで。勝
Oh,
っ
the
てね
music.
炭治郎。あいつにも。
He's like, were they a figment of my imagination? Like, where'd they go?
サビトの面を切ったはずの俺の刀は、
Flashed a boulder. You did it!
岩を切っていた。
It had to have been real, though. It was just a very bizarre hallucination. But he did say that they were always watching and that there were numerous children, so they must just be able to shrink back into the shadows. But evidently, they were sent here to guide him, unless they are like figments of his imagination. They were here to help him overcome an obstacle because he hadn't yet internalized the lessons. He had learned them, he had picked them up, but he wasn't internalizing them, which is the issue. And then the minute he came across a really difficult obstacle, one that he couldn't overcome, he started to accept defeat. He started to break down and get frustrated and pessimistic, like, "Why am I doing this? Why am I continuing with this? I should just give up." But he eventually learned that just because something's difficult doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but that the path ahead is going to be difficult. It's going to be one in which he's not going to be able to easily overcome every obstacle that he comes across, and that it's going to require every skill that he's learned and honed to be able to overcome it and to achieve his inevitable goal of restoring Nezuko. And this is the resilience that they're helping to solidify within him, because again, as was mentioned to him, he was a fast learner, he was picking it up, but it's not in his body, it's not in his bones. He needs to work himself to the point of death because there is no other option. He has to keep going and he has to keep doing it no matter how difficult it is, because he has no other choice. He has no other option. If this is something that he wants, if he wants to dedicate himself to it, then he can't just give up at the first sign of something being difficult or frustrating. And again, this concept of hesitation is defeat is something he will also have to realize, that he can't just differ when it comes to making a decision, because it leaves him wide open, it leaves him vulnerable. As Sabito said to him when he was on his knees, he was like, "Are you just going to sit there? Because that's not helping your situation. It leaves you weak, it leaves you vulnerable." But I love that his teacher doesn't teach him anything further, because he's already taught him everything he needs to know. But the children that he's adopted and raised are the ones that consolidate his lessons, that make him understand the fundamentals of it and how important it is that he truly embraces everything that he has spent so long learning, and that the only way in which he's going to overcome any obstacle he faces is by actually practicing and pushing himself to improve and get better. That he shouldn't rest on his laurels, that he should always be looking to improve, to enhance his abilities, to become stronger, to become better. In doing that, he's always going to be on the top of his game. As Sabito's saying to him, the only way to really improve is to slam the lessons into your flesh. And we're already beginning to see that. Before Sabito showed up, he has the calluses on his hands. His hands are red raw because of how determined he is to try and overcome the obstacle. But at the first sight of it being pointless, he crumbles. And that's when Sabito shows up to berate him, to essentially pull him out of this pessimistic thinking. Because whilst he's been training, whilst he's been trying to achieve this almost impossible task that's been set out before him, he's still not quite getting the message of internalizing it into his body, into his flesh. Not until Sabito's like, "You have to keep moving forward. You can't just curl up at the slightest difficulty, because what are you going to do when you meet an enemy that is stronger than you? Are you just going to allow them to kill you? No, you're going to try and do whatever it is you can to overcome this difficult enemy. You're going to internalize everything that you know and use that to try and overcome. You're not just going to give up and die," which is essentially what you're doing when you're saying, "Well, what's the point of me continuing on with this boulder because I can't do it?" You're giving up. You're allowing yourself to admit defeat, and admitting defeat isn't beneficial to you, and it's not beneficial to Nezuko. Nezuko being in a coma for 6 months, again, I think it must be tied to this fact that she can't actually eat anything. We've never seen her eat. So I wonder if her body's just kind of entered this like comatose state to reserve energy, because she exerted a lot of it when she was fighting that demon, and then now she's fallen into the sleep that she's not waking from. She's had no nutrients, so I'm wondering if it's tied to that, and that we might have to see them come up with some solution to pull her out, because nobody seems to quite know how to awaken her. And I mean, it's not as if it's something that people would commonly come across, which is a demon in a comatose state. I imagine the doctor's probably like, "I don't actually know what to do here." But it was really good to see how Tanjiro's training is becoming internalized, how he's becoming faster, he's becoming stronger, he's becoming more resilient, he's accepting that the training around him is getting harder and he's adapting to it, which is an important lesson to teach him because the world is a complicated place. The world is not simple. Demons are not a simple enemy. He has to be adaptable and he has to be flexible, which are some of the core techniques that he's honing and learning. But now that he's sliced the boulder, he's going to be going on to the final selection. So we know that there are others training students in different locations. So the final selection will be where they all congregate. And obviously, with final selection, it's either do or die, I imagine. Like, you either overcome it and are successful, or you die in the process. It's not going to be easy. But that's the point. To become a demon slayer, you have to be the best of the best. It's inevitable that if you have an enemy who is incredibly powerful, incredibly strong, and feared, you only want the strongest of warriors to make it through, to join your ranks, especially considering there's like several hundred of them, but no one knows who runs the organization, which is crazy. I just thought it'd be kind of funny if like whoever runs the organization's actually like a demon and is maybe a self-hating demon, like, oh, I don't actually like my own kind, so I'm going to create an organization to take them down. That would be such a plot twist. But maybe we'll inevitably learn who runs the organization, or maybe kind of no one runs it at this point. It's just people carrying on that legacy and heritage in their own ways by training those that they believe are worthy and that they don't actually need someone to run it. But I imagine there is someone organizing in the background somehow, somewhere. But next episode, I think, is going to be incredibly interesting because we're going to get the final selection. And then hopefully a little bit more context about Nazuko and whether she is going to come out of this coma. Again, I think it must be tied to the exertion of energy and just her not being able to eat what demons are supposed to eat. But I still have the burning question of on whether all demons are man-eaters or whether we're going to have demons that aren't man-eaters, that there are some that actually try to live like a normal life. Oh, what if we get like cross human demon interaction? Like we have children who have mixed blood, like they have a parent that's a demon and a parent that's a human. That would be fascinating if we get maybe some characters that are like mixed, because that would throw some sort of intrigue into the world of demons and how it functions and originates, especially if there's like the ability for demons and humans to be in a relationship with one another enough to have children. Again, we really don't know much. We've seen one demon, though there's still quite a lot to the world that we have yet to see, because again, this is just building up Tanjiro and his training, honing his abilities before he becomes a demon slayer. This is him being set on the path and building that resolve and that strength and courage to embark on his inevitable mission. But will inevitably see more of the demons and how they function and interact with the world, I think, once he passes the final selection, because again, this is just setting him up for that adventure. I just love Tanjiro already. He's just such a good boy. He's so determined to do what's best for his sister, to overcome the obstacles he's faced. And of course, he feels dejected and let down, but inevitably he gets back up and he continues training, he continues fighting. And that's part of the process. He needs to learn how to pick himself back up, that even in a moment of weakness, he needs to not be burdened and weighed down by it. He needs to pick himself up, dust himself off, and keep trying, keep going, keep motivating himself. And that's why Sabito was so good for him, in that it was drumming home those lessons. And then we have Makomo, who was helping him further ingrain it into him until he was ready to face Sabito again. So Sabito was kind of like the final test, but Makomo was the one that took over when they realized he wasn't quite ready But Makomo was so cute. She was such an endearing figure. I hope we do see them again. It was quite strange how they just kind of faded into the fog, almost as if like they weren't real, which would be very interesting, especially because he sliced down the mask, but it wasn't the mask, it was the boulder. So you kind of have to question, is it like a psychic phenomenon? And maybe that speaks to his trainer's past. Maybe his trainer did adopt children, did raise children, and these children perhaps died because of his hesitation, that maybe he didn't do something that he knew he should have done and he held back, and it resulted in those that he loved and cared about and raised having died, which is why he's so harsh on Tanjiro and is trying to make him realize that like he needs to not hesitate, that he needs to make decisions and be assured that this is the best choice. Or whether they are actually real and are just very fast moving. Who knows? It was quite strange. I guess we'll see if they were real or not, but there was some mention that there are numerous children watching them, so I'm not entirely sure. It was a little hard to tell whether they were real or whether it was like his own brain imagining them as he trains and locks in, but I guess we'll see as the show progresses whether they were actually real or just a figment of his imagination. But if they're not real, I would say it probably hints to his trainer's past, and that's why he's so harsh about hesitation. But we'll not delve into that any further than we already have. But thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!